Welcome to a live episode of Surviving the Survivor. We bring you the best guests in all of true crime. Don't forget to subscribe and smash that like button. Here's your host, Emmy Award-winning broadcaster, Joel Waldman.
What's up, SCS Nation, and welcome to another episode of Surviving the Survivor, the second of the day, and it's the podcast that brings you the very best guests in all of true crime. And tonight, even for our standards, we are raising the bar, and that's because we've got the lieutenant who's actively in the police department where this investigation is taking place. I'm going to introduce him in a moment, and the other two guests you probably recognize already, but we're about to delve into the absolutely chilling murder of 42-year-old Matthew Restelli. He's living in California. According to police in American Fork, he was lured to Utah by his wife. Some say she's estranged. Others say they were still together. We can ask the lieutenant about this. And lured there by the wife, but also the brother, a guy named Kevin Ellis, and the wife's mother, Tracy Grist. The odd thing about this case is it bears a lot of resemblances to the Dan Markel murder, where, of course, as you know, Donna Adelson played a key role in orchestrating the murder for hire of her son-in-law amid those custody battles as their marriage started to fall apart. The Restelli case involves tracking devices, manipulating travel, a stage crime scene, and as you're about to learn, the searching on computers of Dan Markel and the Adelsons. So without further ado, the best guests here, Lieutenant Stuart Fohr. He is a proven leader with over 20 years in civilian law enforcement and 20 years in the United States military. Today is Veterans Day. Thank you for your service, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah, Stuart Fohr, he's been instrumental in making significant and impactful organizational changes at various levels and taking the lead in multiple critical incidents, including in SWAT, forensic dive operations, and criminal investigations. He is currently the lieutenant in the investigations division and the investigations division commander for the American Fork Police Department, which is in Utah. Love the name American Fork. Next up, you guys all know Tim Jansen, the courtroom chef. He is one of the nation's finest criminal defense attorneys, a former federal prosecutor. He does it all, but he's not quite as excellent as Monica Jordan. Monica Jordan is one of the nation's premier private investigators, president of Jordan Research and Consulting. Her firm happens to be in Tallahassee, of course, home of the Dan Markel murder. She's handled more than 50 death penalty trials, and she worked with the notorious female serial killer Eileen Wuornos. And as it pertains to Dan Markel, she was working with Luis Rivera's team. You all know Luis Rivera, the famous Latin Kings gang member that loves Charlie Adelson. So, Lieutenant, again, thank you for being here. We really appreciate it. And, you know, I was talking to you off camera. It is unusual, and for an active lieutenant in the department to speak on an ongoing case, but the lieutenant told me, he can speak about whatever's in the probable cause affidavit, which is 17 pages, as well as some press releases, but he might have to defer me to Tim or Monica. But the first, I guess, the most obvious question, Lieutenant, is Dan Markel was our original story here at Surviving the Survivor. When you first came across, or your department or detectives first came across these searches for Dan Markel and Donna Adelson, had you ever heard of them before?
No, I haven't personally, and our lead investigator had also not heard of them.
Yeah, so I mean, I assume you did searches of your own, and I mean, what was your reaction to that?
Our detectives did searches and found out who they were, and they were kind of shocked, to be honest with you, when they came to me and said, "Hey, this is what we found out," because one of our suspects had been doing research on that case.
Yeah, it's crazy. Do me a favor, just tell the audience a little bit about American Fork. I love the name. We had someone in the chat last time we did the story who lives outside of American Fork and promised me an American Fork hat, which I'm ecstatic about. But what part of the state is American Fork in Utah? What's the community like?
The community is about 20, 25 miles south of Salt Lake City. It's a close-knit community. It's growing quite a bit. During COVID, it just the population has started exploding, but it's still a tight-knit community here in just north central Utah.
So I'm going to go to Tim in just a moment, but just so people understand the story, because it's a convoluted one. The victim in all this is a guy named Matthew Restelli. I'm going to bring up a photo. I think the COE has a picture here. So these are some of the players. There's Matthew Restelli. There is the wife here, Kathryn Restelli, and then you've got the mother-in-law. Her name is Tracy Grist. A lot of people think they're sisters. She's the mother. She's 59. The daughter, I believe, is 36 years old. And then you've got the alleged shooter, and we'll get into that. And his name is Kevin Ellis. I couldn't find a mugshot. I haven't seen anything. Lieutenant Four, is there a mugshot currently of Kevin Ellis?
I'm not sure. That's handled by the sheriff's department, and I would have to go on their website to see.
All right. Well, afterwards, if you find it, you can send it to that email. But Tim Jansen, this is actually a really interesting panel because you've got kind of three components to a actual case. You've got the police department here, you've got the defense attorney, and then Monica, you've got the private investigator who could be working on behalf of the state, although she does defense work primarily. But Tim Jansen, you read this case, the story, and you had a pretty strong reaction. What were you thinking when you read about this?
Well, it's crazy when you stage a crime and then you don't do a very good job staging the crime, and you leave an electronic footprint shows that you were conspiring to commit a crime, and then you leave evidence that's very easy for law enforcement on a murder case because they're going to dispatch all their resources, electronic. They're going to interview witnesses. They're going to get cell phones, and it's a very simple case when they have all that evidence. And the perfect murder was not committed in this case. I mean, they didn't even know he was left-handed. I mean, these people they're just terrible. Makes it easy for the police, which is good because we don't have a whodunit. We know who did it.
It makes it really hard for you though, Tim, which I'm going to pick your brain about.
Very much so.
Yeah. So before we get to Monica, this all transpired back on July 12th of this year. American Fork Police in Utah, as you heard, it's 25 miles roughly south of Salt Lake City. Police respond to a man shot. They find this guy, Matthew Restelli, dead from multiple gunshot wounds. They're in the home where Kathryn Restelli was living with her mother. And at the time that this happened, all three adults, not including Matthew, were in there. So Kathryn Restelli, Kevin Ellis, the accused shooter, and Tracy Grist were at the home along with the two children. Again, similarities with the Markel. The children were home at the time. Those kids are now in the custody of Division of Child and Family Services. Monica, before I get to you, I've got to ask, Lieutenant, do we know how the children are doing? Obviously, the father is a victim here, and these kids are going to be victims likely for the rest of their lives because of this. Oh.
Yeah, the children are doing good. I'm not really going to go into a lot of detail about them, but DCFS did come in and initially take custody of them.
And do you have the ages and genders? Can you give us that?
I'm not going to go into the children.
Okay.
I'm going to leave that out.
Okay, sounds good. Monica, your job is to work on behalf of the defense. Tim Jansen hires you. How do you start in a case like this where these people don't seem to be the smartest criminals around?
Well, do I get to pick which one of these defendants is the client?
Which one would be which one would you prefer to dig up?
Well, to be honest with you, they all have such terrible facts. the brother, Kevin Ellis, he's got cocaine on board, so that's never a good thing. He's got a criminal history, so I mean, he's put in a terrible spot. The wife is going on a date the day after the husband's murdered, and Mama Bear is orchestrating all of this. So out of the three, they're all terrible, but I would think I would maybe want to take the wife only because she may have a better defense as to if there's a battered spouse situation or something else terrible going on in the murder. But overall, these are all terrible, terrible facts. And I cannot think of a worse family to model a crime after than the Adelsons. They're all going to prison for the rest of their life. And I'm just like, out of all the cases you could try and copy, why would you copy that band of nitwits?
Yeah.
By the way, Donna Adelson had the decency to hire two gang members. I mean, Tracy Grist puts her own son in the lions, right in the lions.
Although I'm not sure, and maybe the lieutenant is Kevin Tracy's son. I know he's her brother, Kathryn's brother, but can you tell us if he's Tracy's son?
Yes, they are. Kathryn and Kevin are natural brother and sister.
Oh, okay. So there you go, Monica. You're absolutely right. So this is a true family affair. Mother, daughter, and son trying to pull off a really, really bad crime in a very stupid way. Lieutenant, to you, since I know you can't talk about a lot of specifics, one thing, we've got a lot of detectives and law enforcement on here. What is your take on why people do these incredibly stupid things? I mean, why not just opt for a divorce or, an estrangement? Why do people rise to the level of killing a spouse to end a marriage? What is your opinion of this?
There could be a lot of different opinions on that, and it depends on what the person's thinking. Personally, I see absolutely no reason why anybody should be able to do that, or should do that, I should say. There are other ways to get out of a marriage than to go out and kill somebody.
Tim Jansen. I mean, we see it over and over, but this one, by the way, this also does have similarities to Lori Vallow, because in that case, Alex Cox, Lori's brother, he was, claiming self-defense, and we're going to get into that in a second. But Tim, just, from your research of this so far, it seems like the prosecution's case here far outweighs the defense, the strength of the case. Hypothetically, you live in American Fork. You'd obviously be the best criminal defense attorney there. They call you. How do you begin this?
Well, it's curious that the defense lawyer doesn't want him to talk, but he's claiming self-defense. But then the defense lawyer is giving facts that only the defendant and the witnesses, co-conspirators, would know. So now the lawyer's made himself a witness in the case, because if they go to trial and change their story, the lawyer is going to be a witness. It's not privileged because he told it to the police.
Yeah, it sounds like Dan Rashbaum again now.
I wonder if this lawyer, how much experience he had, that he thought he was doing the right thing by not saying anything, but saying I was afraid, but then filling in information that was inconsistent with the facts. I'll tell you one thing. Investigators who do murders are very well trained. They go to a scene. They're like a CIA agent, right? They're looking at everything. You may not think they're looking, but they're looking at everything, and they're seeing how people perform, and they look at the scene. And when they see things that don't add up, they're going to tell each other, and they're going to get warrants, and they're going to let people talk. They want people to talk. That's how you should be trained to do, because, the evidence speaks for itself. And this story they gave it just buries them. They're better off. He would have been better off saying nothing. The lawyer would have been better off saying nothing. Hey, my guy just shot somebody. We'll get back with you tomorrow. He's upset. Can we call you in the morning? Right? That would have been a better approach.
Yeah. COE, by the way, I know you're working on this behind the scenes, but from Friday's show, we had those searches, which we're going to definitely ask the lieutenant about in a minute. But Monica Jordan, Coffee First has a great question. It was a question I was asking myself. They are searching Dan Markel prior to the murders. I think it was like a month before. They're searching Dan Markel, Donna Adelson, Katie Magbanowa. Do you think they were looking up the Adelsons to see what not to do or what to do? It's difficult. It's a difficult call here.
Well, either way, they made their own mistakes. I mean, they put the knife in the wrong hand. They had the blade facing internally instead of externally. The poor guy's arm, his left arm, his primary arm, is over his head in a potential defense position. And you have the mother giving a statement that they spoke when he walked in. So he's not some armed intruder that, surprise, he's here. No, he walks in and speaks to his mother-in-law. Hi, Tracy. And then she meanders off, and the next thing you know, she hears gunshots. And I'm just taking that from the public documents. I don't have any internal information, but to also add to what Tim was saying, the clients have a constitutional right under the Fifth Amendment to not say a word. It doesn't say you can utilize your Fifth Amendment right, but then have the dumbest lawyer in town give the facts. What I think was happening was he may have been trying to filter information to help his client, but instead he's made himself a witness. And that was one of the notations I made on the document, is that those are statements against interest. And it might as well have been coming straight from Mr. Ellis's mouth. So I think the lawyer is off to a pretty bad start. I'm not being critical of him. I'm just saying that he has put the client in a bad position where he's now given a statement by proxy through his own lawyer.
Stuart, do we know if this is a criminal lawyer or a lawyer friend that was at the scene?
Lieutenant, do you happen to know that? I mean, can you answer that?
I don't believe he was a criminal lawyer.
Okay, that answers.
I would honestly have to double check that, but I don't believe that he was a criminal lawyer.
That makes sense, then. That makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, the Restellis, Kathryn, the wife, probably should have thought that over. So again, I have to be careful with the lieutenant because this is an active case. Actually, can you tell us where the investigation stands? I mean, you just announced the arrest. So first, the brother was arrested, Kevin Ellis. That was back in July, but just a couple of weeks ago, if that, the mother, Tracy Grist, and Kathryn Restelli were arrested. Can you just kind of let us know where the investigation stands, Lieutenant?
Yeah, we arrested Kevin that night. About between 4 and 4:30 that morning. And then on the 29th is when we arrested Kathryn and Tracy. Right now, we're still looking into things that I'm not going to really go into what we're looking into, but it is still an active investigation.
Any other family members a suspect?
I'm not going to go into that.
Now, there's a sister out there that was involved with,
Lieutenant, how about this guy, Kevin Ellis? Monica mentioned it. I think he had a drug charge against him. He had a weapon that he wasn't supposed to have. Is that because he's a felon and was in possession of a firearm? Can you tell us that?
Yes. The reason that he was a restricted person was because he had cocaine in his system at the time and he had the firearm. So under Utah law, that's a restricted person.
By the way, if any of your detectives want to tell them to reach out to Tim Jansen and Monica, they know the Dan Markel case inside out, and I'll send you all the survivors. We've probably done about 1,000 surviving the survivors on Dan Markel. So your detectives have a lot more work to do. How many people live in American Fork, by the way?
We have roughly 45 to 48,000 right now, I believe.
And this is a good question. My friend Nikki Cudd's in the chat. Do you know how long they were married for?
I think 7 years.
Yeah.
I'm not 100% certain off the top of my head.
And they're all in custody right now, right, Mr. C?
Yes, they are still currently in jail.
And have they been denied bail or what?
I know Kevin has. I don't know about Kathryn and Tracy.
Are they facing the death penalty out there in Utah or life in prison?
Prosecution hasn't let us know which one they're going to go after yet.
We're going to get to this, Violet, I promise. Who knows? They could have been Search and Surviving the Survivor, but they were definitely, I would assume, using Google to do these searches, literally for Dan Markel, Donna Adelson.
Black Widow.
There's some specific ones. Tim Jansen. So
yes.
you alluded to this. So following the investigation at the scene, police questioned Kevin Ellis, but it's being done in the presence of his attorney. You know, I was asking Phil Waters, who's a homicide detective. He's investigated over 400 homicides. He said he could not remember a single time that he arrived on a scene where the attorney was there before he got there to answer questions. I mean, how do you think this even came about? I mean, do you think this was a friend of the family? I mean, how did this guy get over there basically before police even arrived, from what it seems like?
That could have happened. He may have been a friend of Tracy, the mother, or might have been a neighbor and came over as a friend when they panicked. Maybe they called the lawyer before they called 911. Not a good sign there either, right? The delay 6 minutes to call the 911 when the neighbor called. Clearly they had time that they were trying to maybe do something to the crime scene that, you know, there's no way that he ran and got into a safe, pulled out a gun, and then put on I guess it was in a holster. So he was walking around with a holster with no gun. The guy comes in and talks to the mom, and then he runs to a safe, pulls the gun out, shoots him. None of those facts add up. Yeah. None.
We're going to get to these searches in a minute. Becky Ireland, great panel. So glad to see Tim back, although I blame his pics of food. Tim puts on a lot of food on his Instagram page at Courtroom Chef. If you're not
eat in moderation, you can do it in moderation.
Moderation. It's all about moderation. Shaquille O'Neal, the best name in all the YouTubes, which I haven't said in a while because he's our mod, but he just says wow, and it's kind of what I'm saying or thinking to myself as well. So just some more details I'm going to fill in as we go back and forth between the different guests. So this attorney, as we were discussing, is literally there, and he tells detectives that he had shot Matthew, but he said he believed it to be self-defense because Matthew had a knife. Monica sort of spoiled it, but we're going to find out that knife was not. And it's fine. The knife was not in the dominant hand. Did your detectives? Do you know if they told you right away? I mean, they arrested this guy the same night, so there had to be very obvious information that led them to think this was something more than a self-defense shooting incident, Lieutenant.
Yeah, our patrol officers, when they first arrived on scene, one of them was just on the spot real quick, took a bunch of pictures before EMS had arrived to try to give life-saving measures. And when he showed us the pictures, when my detectives arrived on scene, we looked at it and went, something's not right here, just based off on those pictures. And that really got us going down the road of looking deeper into this case.
Yeah, well, kudos to your department, because it's great police work. And it was done, I mean, incredibly quickly. This guy was arrested the same evening for what he claimed to be a self-defense shooting. The bearded lady, had Charlie Adelson already been found guilty? Yeah, they were searching this like a month before, like this past June. Charlie was already convicted. At that point, he's already in South Dakota. So I would hope that they're looking at what not to do, but I just have no idea. It's kind of insane. So Monica Jordan, the attorney now, he's asked about the knife, but he says, no, I can't answer that one. He declines to answer that one. He is invoking his own Fifth Amendment right there. And he just says, he just tells police, he offers to police, well, this guy, Matthew Restelli, just showed up uninvited. Yeah. So he's saying some things, not saying other things. Is this guy the world's dumbest attorney for speaking or not. I mean, I hate to beat up on him. I don't even know his name. So
Well, I don't want to say that. I don't know him. I just feel like he may be outside of his depth. I mean, the funny thing about the Fifth Amendment is that you can't, at least in my experience, and I've only been doing this 30 years, so I'm certainly not, the end all be all, but you can't cherry pick which questions you want to ask when, like, oh, I'll answer my name and my date of birth and my social and my favorite food and where I was yesterday and last Christmas. But when you start asking the hard, real pointed ones, I don't want to answer those. It doesn't work that way. Like, if you're invoking the Fifth, you're invoking the Fifth, and you just don't say anything. So, like I said earlier, I think the lawyer has put his client or his friend or his neighbor or his biggest enemy, however they're related, in a terrible spot. But I think the lawyer has put himself in an equally bad spot, because now he may be called to testify against Kevin Ellis because it's a statement against interest.
No, he's definitely going to be called as a witness.
Yeah, Tim, I mean, I was just going to jump in. Tim, this is so weird because now with the Dan Markel case paralleling this, you and I both know that on some of these jailhouse calls where Donna Adelson speaking to Charlie Adelson, Donna tells Charlie that a guy named Dan, she doesn't say a guy, but she just references Dan, who was helping her flee to Vietnam. And so you and I had these conversations over and over. Could Dan Rashbaum have been called as a witness? But here you're saying it's even more evident that this guy undoubtedly will be called. Is that right?
Oh, no doubt he's going to be called, because he would only have known the facts because he was there that night, right? So he would have had gotten that information from two other witnesses, right? Either the mother or the shooter or the wife. So if he's answering those questions and giving a defense or giving statements of why he was in fear, that's going to be admissible. And if it conflicts with the physical evidence, then that's relevant evidence that is that they can introduce.
Hey, Tim, can I just wanted to add, Joel, you had mentioned that he wasn't an invited guest.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate that.
Even though they're tracking him to the house.
Right. I was going to say, I would really love for them to toss that softball up in the air for a Georgia Cappleman type prosecutor to just knock it out of the park. He doesn't need an invite. You already knew he was coming from the past 6 hours. You were tracking.
I don't think they knew that they were going to find the Apple tag, which is a whole other part of this story. But
the biggest problem we see from the defense standpoint, and I know this is, Lieutenant Four sees it on his side, but from our side, we have conversations with our client in the very beginning, and that is, they're going to have an absolute mirror image of every syllable or character you have spoken or typed or uttered or thought. And I can't unring that bell. I can't undo the science. Snitches and witness interviews and bad memories, those are all things we can work with. But videotape and electronic devices answer a lot of questions. And that makes it puts the defense in a real untenable situation to try and develop a defense for people. And Tim and I see this a lot. I don't think I've ever been in a case with Tim specifically where we have ever gone in and given a statement to law enforcement without a thorough vetting with the client, and probably over the course of a day or so. We don't just 5 minutes later. I mean, you're not going to talk this guy, Mr. Ellis, out of handcuffs. So you might as well go ahead and let him get charged and then start building your case. And then just, we'll figure out how to get him bond or something else. But what this guy did has really kind of put something in motion that they're not going to be able to undo.
So, Lieutenant, what we tell our client is, you're not going to talk yourself out of arrest. You're going to talk yourself into a conviction.
That's right.
And they normally do, as you well know, and that's why you like to talk to them.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we do. And that is true. And I've heard that from a lot of defense attorneys over the 20 plus years I've been doing this job.
Yeah. Just coincidentally, tomorrow, 3:30 p.m. Eastern time, we've got Ruth Markel coming on the program with Jeremy Mutz and Jared Ross. Ruth is going to be here in South Florida at the Jafco Center. The COE is going to find the flyer and she's going to put it up, and we'll put it up again tomorrow. She's going to be doing a book signing and asked me to sign my book along with her. It's going to be December 22nd, and she'll be the keynote speaker, and Dave Ehrenberg, the Florida State Attorney, will be there, and I will be moderating that talk. But it's another chance to meet Ruth in person in South Florida, and the great Dave Ehrenberg. So, Lieutenant, just back to you. You know, in the PCA, the probable cause affidavit, it mentions meticulous planning. I know you can't get into details of the case, but can you kind of tell us or fill us in a little bit about what was so meticulous about it? Well, I think you're muted.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah. I got you. Thank you.
Okay, sorry about that. I think some of the meticulous things included the air tag, which was alluded to a few minutes ago, the planning of the knife, the delay on 911. And if you read the probable cause statement, we know that Caitlin even told Matthew, hey, here's the gate code to get into the gated community. We're going to lay down some cardboard so your truck doesn't leak oil onto the road, and come on in, the door's open.
Yeah. The 911. Yeah, I'm sorry. The 911. I don't know that I knew that part. How delayed were they in calling 911, and what did they? Are you able to tell us what they said to the 911 operator?
I can't say what they said to the 911 operator, but I can say that the first call came in from a neighbor about a minute or two after the initial shots were fired. And then Tracy called 911 approximately 6 minutes after the first 911 call came in.
Interesting. Jennifer Levy here. Sorry about that. I'm confused. I thought so. Tomorrow we were doing Ruth at 12:30. You're absolutely correct. However, we forgot that Corey Richens, back in Utah, she is a mom of 3 accused of murdering her husband with 5 times the lethal dose of fentanyl. She's in court tomorrow. She wants out of jail. Surprise, surprise. So she's going to try to get herself bailed out of jail. And that's what that hearing is about. There is a chance we're hearing that the judge is actually going to drop 2 of the lesser charges. So, and Greg Scortis will be here to break that down. Tomorrow's a triple header, actually. And then at 7:00 tomorrow night, we are doing Suzanne Simpson, very similar to Suzanne Morphew. Ironically, they have the same, 3 for Tuesday, exactly. Suzanne Morphew is a mom who's still missing. The husband was just arrested with murder. That's in San Antonio, Texas. Sadly, Lieutenant, again, there is no dearth of true crime. I mean, what is going on? Why do people resort to crime? I'm just mystified. My dad was a psychiatrist. My mom's a social worker. Why don't people think of the consequences ever, Lieutenant?
In my personal opinion, people don't think of the consequences because of the fact that they're just caught up in the moment. They, for some reason, they don't stop and think about other ways to do things, better ways to do things. And because of that, that brings us in, all 3 of us, into the mix of it.
And while I have you, Lieutenant, from Olive Green, with the olive green or blue eyes, I can't tell. Can they also be prosecuted for child endangerment or abuse because the children were in the home? Are they facing any of those charges?
Right, they are. We've charged them with domestic violence in the presence of children ×2. So 2 counts of it.
Yeah.
And
Suzanne,
to answer one lady's question, I'm from Mississippi, not Georgia.
Oh, there you go. There you go. I love it. And again, it's Veterans Day. And Lieutenant, what branch of the military were you in, Lieutenant?
I was in the Army, and then I finished my time out in the Army National Guard.
Thank you. Marley Mom here. This is true. Suzanne was found. It was like 2 or 3 years after she went missing. So, there's hope that they're going to find Suzanne Simpson as well. When you see the mugshot of this woman, Suzanne Simpson's husband, Brad, he's smirking in the photo, and it's in the mugshot. It's pretty disturbing to see. But Monica, back to you, and then we'll go to Tim here. But we were talking about this knife. So following the investigation on scene, American Fork Police, they're questioning them, and then Kevin Ellis, in the presence of his attorney, decides to tell police that he shot Matthew out of self-defense, claiming that Matthew Restelli, the estranged husband, or the husband, had a knife. But when they go to look at the knife placement, as you alluded to, it just totally doesn't make sense. Knife's not in his dominant hand. It's not in the right position. I mean, this makes life really difficult for you and Tim Jansen.
Well, the worst fact for Tim, I would just be sitting.
I'm representing the wife. I'm representing the mother. I want the mother, because I'm going to flip the mother.
Okay.
Again, no, that's not going to work. But I would represent I would want to be a part of the wife's team and flip her. But an interesting thing, which is going to make Mr. Ellis's defense fall apart, is that there is a bullet wound in the right wrist of the victim.
The victim, yeah.
Which would make it impossible for him to have a grip on the knife. So that's how they were able to deduce that the knife was put in his hand after the fact. And they wouldn't have known, because you'd have to move the sleeve to see the hole in the wrist. So there's nothing better than having your derelict, coked up brother be the trigger man in this event. It's like, I mean, it's just a terrible, terrible tragedy. And the Restelli family is, we always, when we talk about this true crime stuff, we never talk about the victim's family that much. I hope these children are back with that family. And I know the lieutenant can't really talk about that, but I hope they're out of the custody of the state of Utah and back with family that loves them, because they don't deserve this. And the other thing I was going to add is that the reason why I think she may have been involved in this is because she had taken those kids from California, and if she filed for divorce, they were going to probably have to send these children back to the father until they finalized the divorce. And so she wasn't sending these children back. So her and her family came up with this situation.
Yeah, this bad plan. I mean, Tim, so, again, paralleling, because they were searching the Adelsons, and I promise we're getting to the specific searches in a minute here. So, we've been asking for years, is Donna going to flip on Wendy? Is Charlie going to flip on his mom? In general, in these conspiracy cases, Tim, I mean, how likely or unlikely is there an equation for this where the family either stays loyal to one another or they start to fall apart and turn on each other?
Families don't usually flip. Marriage by blood, but the sister, the brother, and the mother, they're not going to flip on each other. It's just, everything is really bad about the whole facts.
Yeah.
And they got, when you say I'm claiming self-defense and you have a lawyer there and they arrest you that night, you don't have much of a self-defense, because normally the police would take their time and do some investigation and knock down your alibi, knock down the threats. And it didn't take them long to realize this is nonsense. And good detective work, experienced detectives, just crazy.
Well, interestingly, in all of these text messages and all of this electronic communication, I don't see anything that in the reports that I've read where there's anything from the victim screaming at the wife saying, you better bring my kids back or I'm going to come there and kill your whole family. We haven't seen any of that. So you would think that would be there if that was going to be their defense, that she was protecting the children and getting away from this, bad marriage. But all we see is, a poop emoji next to the truck, and that's how they identify him. Kind of like how in Adelsons they identified Mr. Markel as yippers or jabbers or whatever.
Jibbers.
Yeah, when the wife was interviewed, she never said she was a victim of a domestic abuse. She said it was just verbal.
Right.
She never said physical. In fact, she never ever indicated he was physically harmful towards her. I don't believe he has a record. I don't know what his record is, but it seems extreme that he's going to call them and tell them I'm coming. He doesn't have a phone. Says, I'll use your charger when I get there. And they're tracking him. And he walks in and talks to the mother-in-law. And then the next thing, he's shot 7 or 8 times. And then she goes on a date the next day.
Well, and it's very telling
Nice
that
family.
right? But
I mean,
they don't have the means to buy an extra phone charger. I mean, that's not being disparaging to their financial situation, but this guy is coming to like have a conversation with her about, hey, let's put this back together. We've got these kids. I mean, if he's not spending the extra $18 to get the charger, however much a charger is, that's telling me that he's making a pretty significant effort to get to Utah to see his children.
Yeah. So he wanted
gasoline.
Here's another thing. He wanted to send her a rental car, but the family knew that they wanted to off this guy. And so the mother, Tracy Grist, says, well, tell him you sprained your ankle real badly. And so, you know, it's sinister in that way. And that's why they say they lured him out there. Lieutenant, it's probably too early to know, but is there a chance that they're going to be tried together or separately, these three?
That hasn't been decided yet. We haven't heard from the prosecutor's office as to how they want to do this.
And how quickly do you move an American Fork? Like, if you had to take a guess at when this trial might take place, what would be your best guess?
I would probably, if I had to take a wild guess, I'd probably say sometime this summer.
Really? Okay, so that's fairly.
It depends on the courts, huh? What they're going to do.
Yeah.
Hey, Lieutenant, do you guys have the authority to arrest on a murder, or do you run it by the state of the prosecutor before you do that?
We do have the authority to do that. That night, we were on the phone with our liaison with the county attorney and running everything by him. And then he made the recommendation, hey, we should go ahead and arrest. And that's when we said, all right, let's do it. Our detectives have done fantastic work on this, and they were rolling that night.
Yeah. So the probable cause, just to lay this out even a bit more, it shows that Matthew and Kathryn, the husband and wife here, that they were living in California, but they were obviously having marriage problems. So Kathryn moves to Utah. That's where her mother, this woman, Tracy Grist, is. Police actually, basically revealed a motive, and they said that she just wanted a divorce, thought the process would be too long, and worried about losing her children. Lieutenant, back to you real quick. So, I always hear from these criminal defense attorneys, and I talk to family attorneys, and everyone says that family court's more dangerous than criminal court. I try to make this show a learning experience too. I mean, what would your advice be to people? Because this is just happening way too often. If you're in a contentious divorce, do you have any advice other than killing your spouse?
Oh, I would never advise to kill the spouse. And in all honesty, I've been through a divorce, so I understand how it can be trying. It can really wear on you, but it's one of these things that you just have to take your time and work through it day by day. Eventually, you'll get through it.
So yeah, moving along here. Kathryn told detectives that Matthew, that he decided to drive to Utah to speak with her, and that he called multiple times. There is a California law that says, this is according to detectives, that I think, as Monica said, that they would that this guy Matthew Restelli may have been able to get full custody in California. Monica, do you think that was one of the catalysts here, that this California law that would have allowed him to bring the kids back to California was sort of what triggered this horrible idea?
That, and I think she may have been thinking ahead, and that she may be charged with a crime for absconding with those children out of state. Because I think possibly there's some criminal violation there. I don't think you can just take off with children.
By the way, Olive is asking, is American Fork the Ruby Frankie case too? Was that you guys?
No, that wasn't us.
Okay, that was a YouTuber who got in serious trouble for child abuse. So there you go. Phones are seized, search warrants are obtained for these phones, as you'd expect, Tim. Let's pull these up now. This is what's fascinating to me about this case. This is a family in American Fork, Utah, probably about 3,000 miles away. Maybe not that far, 2,000 and change from Tallahassee. And this is what they're searching. And look at the dates. The crime occurred on July 12th. So this is June 30th. They're searching Adelson Donna, Tim. Adelson Donna movies and TV shows. New Dateline episode, January 19th, Donna Adelson arrested at the airport. When was Donna Adelson arrested? By the way, we broke the news thanks to Tim about Donna Adelson's arrest. Tim, what is going on here, Tim? I mean, you heard the lieutenant say he and the detectives had never heard of Dan Markel. I would venture to say most people have not, even though it's been on Dateline, it's been on 2020, but unless you're really in the true crime community, you're not going to know about it. What do you think drew this family to search these specific things?
Well, obviously they had some criminal intent on their mind, and the facts are pretty consistent with the facts in that case, right? It was children wanted to be relocated or didn't want them to be relocated. And why would they be searching? It's crazy. The digital footprint, in this day and time, 40 years ago, you probably wouldn't have seen any of this evidence, right?
Yeah.
But now, between that and geo-tracking, they can tell you where you are. The fact that the sister and the mother knew where he was, getting ready for where he is, get your alibis ready. And then the knife is allegedly tied to the mother. Stuff was being shipped to her house.
Yep.
That doesn't help at all. They're just dumb people.
Tim, it's worse than that. The knife is not being shipped to Tracy's house. It's being shipped to a friend of hers house in California, I believe, who recently passed. And it was a part of like the mystery gift stuff that like when you join Ducks Unlimited or the NRA, you get like a free sticker or something. And so so I find that even more nefarious because it's a friend of hers that's passed away in California that where the knife potentially may have come from. And I was like, that's even worse than had the knife been sent to her house.
Yeah. So
they're clearly trying to flee here. They're trying to take the kids and leave, just like.
Well, look, this looks like Don Adelson trying to get to Vietnam via Dubai. Look at this, 6/17. This is now a little earlier but how to get my U.S. passport fast, apply for a child's U.S. If I'm the juror and I just read one of these, it's guilty. I'm
if
done.
They can't afford to get a rental car, they're not getting a passport and fleeing overseas.
Yeah, exactly. Tim, I'm going to come back to you because it's tricky on this. The knife, back to the knife, though, it's called an EVATAC, or EVATAC, if I'm pronouncing it correctly. According to the PCA, detectives researched the brand. They find that the knife was one that was put into mystery boxes by a company called My Tactical Promos. It got a little confusing, Lieutenant. Are you able to kind of clarify the different steps as it relates to this particular knife?
Yeah, I can clarify some of that. It was one of these promo knives, and our lead detective spent a lot of time tracking this down. It went to another company out of New York, and we had to contact them, and he was able to eventually be able to tie that knife back to Tracy.
Okay. So now the knife that's mysteriously in his hand that he was using comes from the mother and not from him. COE, I would love to see that if you can pull it up. COE is letting me know that
she's got the knife.
No, but thankfully no, because I'm going.
She better
home.
not. Lieutenant's gonna have someone's ass if she's got the knife.
Imagine now we're involved, and now it gets even. Now the podcaster that's reporting on Dan Markel, and
you're gonna be a witness now. Chain of custody.
I might be more than a witness. I don't want to know. But COE, if we can find that, I would love to pull it up. So, Tim, let me come back to you on this. I mean, in all seriousness, and this is, obviously we're making some light of it because it's kind of really the level of stupidity here is hard to fathom. But again, there's connections to our OG case here, Dan Markel. And it is fascinating that people can sort of be this stupid and kind of thoughtless in their execution of a plan. But Tim, I mean, let's say you're a public defender and you're forced to defend this guy, Kevin Ellis. The guy's got, cocaine in the system. He shoots him. I mean, what do? You try to turn him? Because earlier you said you'd get the mom, the easiest probably to flip on the others. But would you try to get Kevin Ellis to flip on his sister or his mother? I mean, how do you? It just seems to me, as a non-lawyer, I would have absolutely zero defense for this guy. If I was his defense attorney, I'd get up in front of the jurors and say he's guilty. Please convict him.
Well, look, the prosecutors and the police department, they don't make deals with the most culpable person, right? The most culpable person was the one that shot and killed him. All right. Now, sometimes if they think that this guy was just put up and really the mother or someone else, but it's not a great deal, right? But usually the shooter doesn't get the best deal. Ask Sigfredo what kind of deal he got. They don't like giving shooters deals. But what are you going to say? You're going to cross-examine the witnesses. Are you sure about that? Let's talk about the chain of custody. I'd be filing motions to suppress to keep the lawyer's statements out. It wasn't his statement. He really was in custody. It was a custodial interrogation, but he waived it. And it really wasn't him. It was a lawyer talking, so you can't make it attributable to him, but you really could. I mean, that's a good question, right, Monica? I didn't say anything because I invoked my right, but the lawyer said something that was wrong, but I didn't have a duty to correct it because I invoked my rights.
I think
there's the criminal defense attorney.
I got an ineffective lawyer.
Right. I think you'd have a great appellate claim of ineffective assistance of counsel, and
Yeah.
They don't even need those statements to convict these clowns. Right?
By the way,
no, that's just running the scoreboard.
Monica, I'm going to let you jump in 1 sec, but Olive Green here bringing up a good point. This is also kind of like the God's Misfits case. Those were the people, scary looking people out of Nebraska who shot and didn't shoot, but they killed the two. It's Oklahoma, not Nebraska. Oklahoma killed the two moms from Kansas. They were going on a custody visit. Those medical reports are being fully released this week, so we might be doing a show on them later. But Monica, go ahead. You said you'd see it differently than Tim. Tim was saying, "Look, I had a bonehead for an attorney." So
I would. You have to run them all parallel. You don't just pick one and go, "God, I hope this is the right one." I think you kind of have to run them all. But from a forensic, like social worker, from the mitigation side of this, I would definitely want to do a deep dive into Kevin, the brother, the trigger man, because first of all, we know he's had problems with the law in the past. We know he has a potential substance abuse issue. I would immediately want to know if there's a mental health issue, and what mother convinces their son to be the trigger man for the sister. I mean, there's something going on there that I would want to get to the bottom of. And if it was if it had so much meat on the bone, that would be a serious conversation that I would have with the defense attorney. I know Tim and I would have this conversation. Would it be better to have him plea to a lesser than first degree and then present all of that stuff in a sentencing? Because it got him, and it's not who did it. It got him. So this law enforcement agency did a phenomenal job and really didn't rush to judge. They really put all of it together very well, which is to the defense's detriment. But if I was involved in the case, in addition to trying to have the lawyer keep the statements out, I would really be trying to figure out what the hell is going on that a mother would ask her son to kill somebody. That's a real problem.
Monica, how come you didn't become a defense attorney? You're so good at this.
Because I make more money doing what I'm doing. I don't want to do what Tim does.
If your house is bigger than Tim's, I'm gonna have to.
No, sir. No, sir. Tim's got the McMansion.
Yeah, he's got that's his beautiful house. Not to throw Tim under the bus live on STS. Mr. Ford, this is not me asking, it's Lieutenant, by the way. What do you think of those searches? I'll bring up this one too. These are a few more here. Again, this is how to get my U.S. These are just little variations on the other ones. How to get my passport, and then you see Utah gun law registration, Utah shooting break-in, or it's misspelled, obviously. How does private sale of firearms work in Utah? I mean, what were your thoughts, if you're able to tell us, on these searches? I guess specifically to, I will ask you, and I don't know if you can answer it. Do you think, to the earlier question, that they were trying to be like the Adelsons or try to be different than the Adelsons because their outcome was not very good?
Well, I really don't know what was going through their mind, whether they were trying to be like them or trying to correct their mistakes. But the searches that they did online, I mean, they were so helpful to us to help build a case.
That's what every defense person wants to hear.
Yeah, we absolutely loved it.
Yeah. Tim Jansen. Here's the final couple. I mean, there's many more searches in this, and maybe the COE will put it all. The PCA. Did the brother sniff glue? That's my mom. This is my mother.
That's exactly what I'd be looking for. That kind of mitigation. You know, the best way to brain damage.
Lieutenant, my mother's the original host of this show. She is a child Holocaust survivor. She's 85 years old, and she's an interesting woman, my mother, but she's smart and she's funny at times. But this is her chiming in the chat. Tim Jansen, how old were Dan Markel's kids when Dan was killed? Katie Magbanawa, second trial defense charts. What do you think's going on here? I don't know what to make of this.
And this was like a month before the murder.
Yeah, it happened on July 12th. This is June 7th.
This is the mother, right? Searching this?
Lieutenant this is the mother. Yeah.
So the mother's searching this, and I take it she's not there yet, right? Because she was only there 2 or 3 weeks before the murder. So it's not good, obviously, when you're searching another case where murder happened consistent with this kind of a murder, a gun and a shooting, and it's crazy. I mean, people are dumb and people commit crimes. You either commit crimes because you do it for money, you do it for love, or you do it for just revenge. And too often, I know the lieutenant probably doesn't know this, maybe he does, but family law is the most dangerous. The lawyers that get killed are the family lawyers. You take their kid, you take their dog, you take their boat, they're going to come out swinging. Now, if you tell a guy who commits crimes, hey, I can get you probation, he's going to be on his best behavior in court usually. But family law, they're on their worst behavior.
By the way,
that's where most of those officers get killed, is serving domestic violence injunctions.
That's right.
The warrants guys are, you think it's the shoot 'em up vice guys that are, the high speed operators that are in the most danger. I'm telling you, those warrants guys serving divorce papers or injunctions or documents saying we're removing your kids. Those are the guys that I think are the most at risk.
Yeah. By the way, Monica's husband is a stud, good-looking man, and he's a law enforcement guy. Makes me nervous. He carries like 73 guns on him at any given moment, and he's got a scary look and kind of a shaved head.
He can run. He's fast. He can run fast.
He looks. Yeah, he played like college baseball. Guys like perfect, I guess, in every way. That's why he got Monica. Tayo Toys here. Shout out to them. Always some funny people in the chat. We try to, even though it's very serious, Lieutenant, we have some lighter moments. Merch idea, STS knives, probably not a great thing to sell. Let me get this back here. Nikki Cuds with a good question. Lieutenant, what, if anything, can you tell us about, prior to the murder, what the situation was with the kids, the arrangement that they had with Matthew and Kathryn?
Well, he was there in California, and she brought the kids here to Utah, and they had talked about getting back together because they did have some marital problems, and he was working real hard to be able to get the kids back, to get his family back together, and start over again, basically.
So, Monica and Tim, back to you guys on this. There is a text, Tim, I think you mentioned this, from Kathryn's sister now. So this is now a fourth member of the family. And it has to do with these they placed an air tag in Matthew Restelli's car, and they did it like in a secretive manner. It was at the bottom of like a cluttered bag. And she texts, Kathryn, the sister, texts the wife, "I'll be watching the air tag and let you know as soon as it is updated." It says right here. And a screenshot of Apple Maps with a blue dot, we all know that blue dot now, was also sent to the wife's phone from the sister's phone, which showed the location in Aguanga, California, which is near Matthew Restelli's residence. From these texts, it is reasonable to believe that there was a tracking device in California on June 20th, 2024, which was being monitored. That's roughly a month and a day before the crime occurs. Tim Jansen, does this sister now need to be worried that she's going to be implicated in this crime as well? And how does it complicate things with now a fourth member apparently in the know?
All right. So there's two things here. One, she could be just letting them know he's coming so they can be prepared for whatever might happen. Or two, remember the Jacksonville case where they put the tire in the road to make sure he stopped? So the killer. Now, if she's doing anything in any way to assist them getting him there, letting them know, or for them to attack him, then she could be part of the conspiracy. But they probably need more than just this text.
Yeah. So Monica, it goes on, the PCA basically saying that all three family members, the immediate ones, not the sister of Kathryn, but Kathryn, her brother, and the mother, they're able to track this guy, Matthew Restelli, because of the air tag. And on the day of the murder, Kathryn, the wife, texts her brother, the accused shooter, "Keep an eye on Find My," which is what people use to search these air tags. I mean, it doesn't seem like it can get much more incriminating than this. Who would be your client of choice here if you had to defend one, or get the scoop, the information on one of these three defendants?
Initially, I said the wife, but now I'm thinking I want the shooter.
Tell me why.
Because he's the biggest idiot of the group. Like, you're at the mercy of these three women, your mother and your two sisters. Clearly, this guy may be intellectually disabled. He may have a mental health issue. We know he's got a substance abuse issue.
He could have been sniffing glue.
He could have been huffing paint. All the great things that are fun at a party. But whatever the reason, I think he's caught. He's the best one to give up everybody else. So, Mike, but I do have a question for Lieutenant Ford, and that is, and if you can't say, I completely understand, but is Kevin living with mom in Utah at that house, at that same house, or was he just over for the night?
No, he was living there, and Kathryn came there with her two children also.
Right. So nothing's, he may be a down on his luck kind of guy, that he's in his late 30s, 40s, living with mom,
doing a little coke,
doing a little, doing a little blow. He sounds like a fun guy.
Can I ask you this? Was he really wearing the holster? The pistol holster when he was interviewed?
Yeah, when we took him into custody, he was wearing the holster.
I would not be representing him unless it was a plea.
Yeah, it's unreal. Coffee first here. This is for you, Tim. Can you take us on a Christmas tour of your home, pretty please?
That's a treat.
We'll do that on Instagram.
We will, and it's in its infancy right now.
Yeah,
and it's magical, and magic. It's like sausage. You don't want to see it being made, but once it's done, we'll show you the version.
Unless you think we are not a international global phenomenon, it is the next day. It's the future in Australia. And greetings to Elaine, coming to us from Barossa Valley, Australia, which I'm sure she pronounces much better and more beautifully than me. Okay, so this is Matthew Restelli's brother. The COE found this on the fly, thanks to Vesper Martini. COE, can you cue this up and play this bad boy?
Welcome to IC Live. My name's Mark. Today's video is rough, but I figured I had to post an update to everyone about what's going on because I'm struggling to post anything. As you already know, I haven't posted much this last year because in October of 2023, nearly exactly a year ago, I got hit by a drunk driver while walking on the sidewalk. I was found unconscious in the bushes and woke up in the hospital with my wife by my side. The incident drastically slowed me down as I've been recovering, and during that time, this channel has suffered. I posted an update in which I talk about plans and ultimately the plans to start ramping things up again, but the energy and enthusiasm has once again been zapped out of me with some tragic news. On July 12th, my brother Matt was murdered by his brother-in-law, Kevin Ellis, in American Fork, Utah. He was shot multiple times, including twice in the back, once in the chest, and once in the right wrist. He had a knife planted in his right hand, which was obvious for two reasons. First, he was shot in the right wrist and couldn't have possibly still been holding a knife if he ever had one to begin with. And second, my brother is left-handed. My brother's wife, Kate, claims that she was upstairs at the time and had remained upstairs the entire incident and never came downstairs to assist in any way. My brother's mother-in-law, Tracy, was also in the house and claims to have not seen the incident. And his two young children were upstairs sleeping at the time. He was shot dead at the foot of the stairs. Perhaps the most damning fact is that the adults in that house, his wife Kate, his mother-in-law Tracy, and his brother-in-law Kevin, the shooter, waited over 7 minutes to call 911. Everything that I just shared with you is public information that was released in the charging affidavit of Kevin Ellis, filed by the American Fork Police Department in Utah. Kevin Ellis, the shooter, was charged with first-degree murder, obstruction of justice, 2 counts of commission of domestic violence in the presence of children, possession or use of a firearm by a restricted Category 2 person, and possession or use of a controlled substance. The entire incident is under investigation, and it will likely be many more months or several years before we truly know what happened. However, it's pretty clear that the stories are not adding up, and something very sinister took place in that house, ultimately taking my brother's life. I've included a link to an article about the incident in the description, and I will be making an official statement here in the near future. But this is all that I'll be talking about this on my channel, because this channel is supposed to be about fun and fish. And it's very hard to have fun and enjoy fish in 2024. And it's likely going to be some more time before I can get my mind right to the point where I want to start making things again. I do have a backlog of projects that I haven't posted yet, so hopefully I can get some of those videos up while I deal with this incident, this tragedy. Thank you so much for your support, and I hope to see you live in a future video.
Wow.
The YouTube channel is ICSEA, like the ocean, live. IC live. Amy Crew just sub to his channel. Let's all sub to it to support this guy. Lieutenant, had you seen this previously by any chance?
No, that was the first time I've seen that. I've spoken with Mark and his mother and several other members of the family quite extensively over the last few months, but that was the first time I've seen that video.
I mean, your heart has to break. I mean, you're obviously a law enforcement officer. You see, he had that video of a drunk driver literally running him. I mean, the guy looks like he made a remarkable recovery. Looks like he was literally run over. I mean, your heart's got to bleed for this guy and his family, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's obviously been through a lot. and I can only imagine what he's going through. But that'd be as close as I could come to it.
Yeah. Guys, let's all sub to his channel if you don't mind, and tell him we're thinking of let him know it's STS Nation coming at him to give him some support. Monica, you're a mom. You just watched that. I was not expecting that. Kind of just put a little damper on everything, obviously, but this is the awful truth of true crime. I mean, there are real victims here. This is the brother. What was your reaction to seeing that? I know none of us were expecting it.
Well, for personal reasons, watching him be run over by an impaired driver at a high rate of speed is a little close to home for my family. So that's the first thing. Tim understands what I'm talking about. The second thing is that I do something that I don't know of too many other defense investigators or people that do the work that I do. And that is I always reach out to the victim's family. And it is the hardest, most painful thing to do, to come and speak to them as an advocate for the defendant. But I always reach out to them because it is the right thing to do. And they don't deserve to be here. And it's hard. And by doing that, it does two things. It lets them see that we recognize them as a victim. And the second thing is that in the future, if there's ever going to be a resolution between any of the parties, I have at least opened the door for communication. They don't have to talk to me. They may tell me to go jump in a lake, and all of those things are fine. But from an empathetic standpoint, I always feel like it is the best thing to do at the very least is to introduce myself from the defense team. And I would have done the same in this case, because I don't care how horrible that marriage is, but 7.5 years ago, those families met and were at a wedding and thought this was the beginning of something great. And at the time it may have been, it produced 2 beautiful children. And it was often, no one starts a marriage planning for a divorce. And so it's 7.5 years ago, this was a good thing. Somewhere the wheels came off. And I just always, kind of try and remember that at one point there was love, and now it's just a complete disaster. And I can't imagine why anybody would think killing the father of your children, even if he is the biggest scumbag wife beater. Well, maybe if he's like having sex with the kids, maybe you could kill him. But in general areas, I think that's a horrible resolution, and it's just a bad idea.
Yeah. By the way,
the
Monica,
person that suffers the most are the children, and that's the hardest part as a mother. Just speaking as a mother.
and I knew you were cool before, Monica, but hearing that you call the victims' families, I love that. Channel name is.
It's not easy.
Yeah,
Let me tell you, they're not.
I'm sure you have. Yeah, I'm sure at times they hang up on you. I wouldn't doubt it. IC Live, ISEA Live is Mark. It's Mark Restelli. Is that right, Lieutenant? Yeah, that's his YouTube channel. Obviously, he does stuff on fishing. And that's why I say best guest, better community is right behind me. That's because STS Nation always comes in big. Ida Shaw left a message. I subbed and left a message. So Tim, this gets even a little crazier and worse. My notes just flipped out on me. Give me 1 second here. So an anonymous friend also is interviewed. Her name has not been released, and she says that on May 13th, this is a little more than I guess a month and a day before the no, a little less than a month before the crime. This is May 13th. The text: crime happens July 12th. And this friend says she gets a message from the wife, Kathryn, who you heard Mark call Kate. And the message reads, "I'm trying to wait." This is Kate telling her friend, the wife, "I'm trying to wait. I just might murder Matt today, though." Now, I mean, Tim, we always say things like this, but, we don't really mean it. How does this impact this potential trial, given the circumstances and the bad facts? Is this something that the state is going to, obviously they're going to point it out, but are they going to make it a real, big deal, saying that most people just use it in jest, but these people really meant it.
Well, I think they will be able to introduce it for her state of mind. That was just sad to see the brother have to talk about his brother after his incident. You know what? He may end up being one of the strongest witnesses in this trial because he'll be the one that's going to testify he's left-handed, right? He can do that and live and have that brother live to the jury. That's strong testimony. I would hate to have to cross-examine him. What are you going to say? I'm sorry for your loss. But he would be a strong witness. Clearly, her comments, anything she says, like, I got to get my big pants on tomorrow. Oh, I was about to kill him, or I could kill him. Those all go to motive. Those all go to her state of mind. And it wasn't so far off. It wasn't like it was in 2 years ago. It was less than 60 days, right? It was in May.
Yeah.
June. So I think that would be admissible.
Yeah, it was less than a month away. I mean, Tim, I know people hate this, but it's your job too, early on, to try to get as much stuff suppressed as you can, right?
My job sometimes is to make sure the system and their rights are protected. It's not my job to get everybody off. My clients might think that. My job is to ensure that their rights, they have a fair trial, and they got zealous representation. You do the best you can. Monica and I do the best we can. We know when we have a loser. We know we pivot from a trial to mitigation, and we do it. We don't do anything illegal. We live within the bounds of ethics, and we go home every day knowing we did the best we could. And, I say this all the time, many times. We didn't make this plane. We're just flying this plane.
By the way, speaking of victims' families, this Wednesday night is 2 years since the brutal quadruple murders in Moscow, Idaho. And we've got 3 people coming on the show from the Moscow Pullman area. We're just going to talk about the victims and how the little college town was affected. We're not going to talk about the guy accused of the heinous crimes. He was in court last week trying to get out of the death penalty, which the judge has not ruled on, but it just made me think of that. That's going to be Wednesday. It's hard to believe it's been 2 years. That's kind of when we came together as a true crime channel. That's when we really started doing true crime. So in a weird, odd way, it's our 2-year mark along with the Idaho 4. Vesper Martini, who's the one who gave us that video just now, or told the COE where to find it. Thank you, Vesper. Lieutenant Ford, can you please explain self-defense law in Utah? I know you're not an attorney, but from a law enforcement perspective, what is the basis of the self-defense laws in Utah?
Yeah, the basis is simply if you feel that your life is in danger, or if you fear for great bodily harm, you can defend yourself. If you feel like you're being, or if you are physically attacked, you have the right to defend yourself. So that's basically what it comes down to.
Yeah. From Teresa here, trust me, Steve Cohen probably already sent the email. Joel, invite Mark on the show. He said he didn't want to talk, and I'm always very, very aware of that. So I would never, I'll reach out to just, offer our condolences and offer up the platform if he wants it, but I'm not going to say, hey, come on the show, because it doesn't sound like he wants to do that. But maybe there will be a time where he does, and we will come back to him. Ida Shaw here on Veterans Day. Thank you, Lieutenant, for your service, past and present. So Monica Jordan, I promise we're going to wrap in just a couple of minutes. The Lieutenant has been amazingly generous with his time. But Monica, so the day of the murder, after this text where she's like, I might murder Matt today, the day of the crime, the wife posts on social media, I'm not sure where, probably Instagram, where everything in the world is roses, unicorns and roses. She posts, I have to do big girl things this morning. Wish me luck. The friend says that she then offers condolences after hearing the news, and Kathryn, the wife, says she was okay. She was actually happy about it. And then the day after the murder, Monica, as if that was not enough, she's on a FaceTime call with friends, and she starts giving them a tour of where he was shot, showing them a bloody portion of the carpet. I mean, this is just next level, depravity here. And, just obviously total like carelessness, disregard for human life. Is this going to just destroy her when it gets to trial?
Well, the first one, I could care less. That whole thing about, oh, I got to put my big girl panties on. I got to go do something tough. That can be attributed to anything. I mean, that, she may be going for bikini wax. I don't know. But I mean, so that one can be spun away or explained away. The other two are bad. You have a very close, dear friend that you've confided in and provided this information to, and like, oh, my husband's dead. I mean, that's pretty hard to overcome. That's going to be a big lift for the defense counsel. And then the third issue with her FaceTiming and showing people in this chat, that is probably one of the most insensitive things that you could do. This is the father of your children. He can be a real piece of work. You guys can be at complete odds. But that tells me a little bit about the caliber of people we're dealing with. It's like, hey, look at me. It's all about me. And we see that a lot. So I think that's problematic. I don't know how you're going to get around that. Again, that is another issue that I would not want to have to deal with Georgia Kappelman on, because she is going to shove it so far. She's going to do a lot with that, and that's going to be real problematic. But I will tell you, when we're doing a comparison and contrast of character of people, the brother that spoke never said one off-putting thing about the investigation, the law enforcement community, or even his ex or sister-in-law, or her brother, or the mother. He just said they were all there, and my niece and nephew were upstairs asleep. But the fact that he was able to show some real class and what we always talk about, some mercy and some grace, and not just completely have a come apart and call them every off-putting thing under the sun, is just probably a real testament to how the Restelli family is. And there's a million ways that this could have been resolved without trying to kidnap the kids to go to Utah and kill your husband.
Yeah, he looked and sounded like a real stand-up guy. So I imagine Matthew Restelli, it was probably.
But even if he wasn't a stand-up guy and absolutely lost his mind and said terrible, off-putting things, I don't really think any of us could blame him, because none of us ever know how we will act until we're in that situation. But I think when you see a comparison and a contrast between the two, she's showing pictures of that. That's going to be bad. And I say it again, I think that is a little bit of the downfall of society, is that everybody needs this immediate recognition. Look at me. I'm a victim. I'm this. Let me show you something cool. And juries don't like that. And it's very off-putting.
Lieutenant from Lee T here. Has anyone ever told you that you look like Donald Sutherland? I can see it a little bit.
No, I've never heard that one. I've heard a lot of other things, but not that one.
Who's the other one? Give us one that you get.
I've been called Santa Claus a few times, but the white beard,
Yeah, that's probably little kids who actually do think you're Santa Claus. Listen, we're going to wrap it up here with some final thoughts. Monica Jordan, she's president of Jordan Research and Consulting. If you haven't figured it out, she's a badass out of Tallahassee, and she's awesome. I mean, Monica just tells you like it is. Tayo Toys, I never pronounce it right. SDS Survival Promo Knives, working on it. And if he says he's working on it, he probably really is. He sent me a little Ferrari with the STS logo on it. It's right back there, actually. Monica, from your perspective as a private investigator for defense teams, your final thoughts on this?
They've all got problems. And the sister that hasn't been charged yet probably needs to lawyer up very quickly. if she hasn't already. And please, God, find somebody better than who the brother had.
Yeah, you could say that again. Tim Jansen, the famed Tallahassee criminal defense attorney, former federal prosecutor, the letter R, but also the OUR. Tim always with us. Tim, you're probably glad you don't live in American Fork because you don't have to defend these three people, but your final thoughts.
Well, I want to commend the lieutenant because, I've been doing this for 38 years, Lieutenant. And
you don't look a day over 38, Tim, but go on. And Monica does not look a day over 30, but go on.
Sometimes police officers' paperwork is not up to speed. It's lazy. It's got mistakes, got errors. The probable cause affidavit in this case was really well done, very thorough. You could follow it. You could flow. It puts everything together. It shows that they did a thorough investigation, that how they tracked the things that didn't fit right, and then how they put it together. It's a strong report. So that's a good job.
Yeah. Kudos to law enforcement. This is the first time, I think, in the 2 years that we've had an officer from a police organization talking about an active case. Obviously, the lieutenant is very careful. He can only talk about certain things, but we appreciate him being here. He is Lieutenant Stewart for over 20 years in civilian law enforcement and 20 years in the United States military. It is Veterans Day, so we should all be thinking about the veterans today. Lieutenant, your final thoughts, and I'm just curious how the community has been affected by this. I'm sure it's, there's 40,000 people, so it's not too small, but I'm sure, people are talking about it. So how's the community and your final thoughts?
The community is rallied behind this investigation, and it showed us great support. Showed great support for the family and for the children. And I just gotta say, our investigators have done a fantastic job, especially our lead investigator on it.
Can you share his name? He deserves a shout out.
Yeah, he asked me not to.
Okay.
He to keep his name down.
Okay.
But otherwise, I'd love to share his name. He's done a great job, and they've all worked really hard to make sure that for the family that case is wrapped up as tight as we can possibly do it.
And it sounds like you've done that because you're hearing from two formidable defense folks, and neither of them want to touch it with a 90-foot pole. They want to stay as far away as possible. So quick reminder, tomorrow we're back at 12:30 Eastern. There's a hearing in the Corey Richens case. She's looking to get out of jail. 3:30, Ruth Markel is here with a couple of other people. We're going to be talking about some interesting things. And then 7 o'clock tomorrow night, if we can pull it off, we're going to do the latest on the missing mother, Suzanne Simpson. Unlike the Barry Morphew, Suzanne Morphew case, these kids are not sticking up for their dad. And when you see the mugshot, you may understand why. So thank you all for being here. Love you, America. Love you, Tallahassee. FSU, you got some issues this year. I know they fired the offensive and defensive coordinator. Florida's got some issues, but they're going to get there eventually. And Lieutenant, where did you say you're from originally? Oh, you're muted.
He's Mississippi.
Missouri.
I'm originally from Mississippi.
Ole Miss fan?
Yeah, Ole Miss and Mississippi State. So pulling for them both.
There you go. It's all about college football in Tallahassee, so I had to ask. But thank you all for being here. 3 shows tomorrow. Love you, Tallahassee. Love you, American Fork, Utah. And justice for this family, Matthew Restelli, horrible crime. We're thinking of the family. We will see you tomorrow on the flip side. Guys, stick around 1 second.